Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Affinity and I'm here with another Reddit story time. This time from the No Sleep Reddit. This story is from the user Robert Mart. So I don't think I have anything else to say about it. Let's just jump in, alright? My girlfriend grows plants in the basement. After I lost my job in the pandemic, I temporarily moved into my girlfriend's house. She was pretty chill about it, but she had one rule. You can't go in the basement. That's where I grow stuff. I began to giggle. Stuff, eh? You got a little weed farm down there? She narrowed her eyes at me, but didn't reply. I took that as confirmation. I mean, it made sense. How else would she be able to afford this house with the 2-story foyer and the granite countertops on a teacher's salary? But I respected her privacy and stayed out of the basement. We'd only been dating a few months and I didn't want to pry. That was before the weird shit started happening. It didn't start out so weird. It just appeared that Samantha was very fanatical about her plans. Every night at exactly 9 p.m., no matter what we were doing, she would get up insisting that she had to water the plants. Can it wait? I asked after a week of this behavior. We were halfway through watching a Twilight Zone episode. At a really good part, William Shatner was about to pull back the curtain and see the gremlin on the airplane wing. No, she replies, her voice flat and emotionless. What? The plants are going to die if you don't water them at exactly 9 o'clock? I asked, forcing a laugh. Anna, she said in a warning tone. I took the cue and shut up. I listened to her footsteps down the hall, down the stairs, then the chain sliding against the lock. Then the creak of the heavy door opening, and her footsteps descending into the basement. That was the other thing. She always took a long time to water the plants, about 45 minutes. How many plants did she have? Was she watering them with an eyedropper? If this was taking up so much of her time, why didn't she invest in an automatic irrigation system? It was only 2 days after that I'd open up our electricity bill because I was mooching completely rent and mortgage free in her house. I thought I'd do something right and pay our utilities. But when I ripped open the envelope, I couldn't stop staring. June's electricity bill was $600. I wanted to pay it, I said, showing her the bill. I can pay half of it maybe. I wanted to pay all of it, I floundered. I'm so sorry. I try not to run the air conditioning. Maybe it's a mistake. I just don't understand. She took the paper from me and then nodded. Lower than last month. Good, she muttered, as if she hadn't even heard anything I said. What? Her eyes flickered to me. It's lower than last month's bill. That's good. And then I remembered the plants. They must have a ton of lights to be growing in a pitch black basement. Is this all from your plants? Most of it, yeah. I whistled. Well, I hope you're charging a ton for it. I can't imagine making a profit on this, or even breaking even. Her eyes met mine, and then an annoying smile crept across her lips. I'm definitely making a profit, she said in an odd, smug tone. Then she folded the bill into her pocket and walked away. I watched her go, her long skirt swaying, her Mary Janes clacking on the linen floor, her perfect brushed hair fanning out behind her. Is this woman really some sort of massive weed dealer? I wondered to myself. 5 days later, the curiosity got to me. Samantha was at the office and I was cleaning upstairs when I heard her Yorkie whining. I came downstairs to find the dog staring at the basement door. Hey, it's okay. A low growl from her throat. She barked. Do you want a treat? I walked over to the cabinet searching for dog treats. Ah, bingo. I cracked open a bag of imitation bacon and held one up. Tutu immediately bounded over. I led her to the family room, gave her a couple treats, and set her up with some toys. Assured she was distracted and happy, I went back into the kitchen to pack up the treats. Her eyes fell on the door. What was Tutu so worked up about? I thought, as I filed the treats away on a shelf. Maybe a squirrel broke in through one of the windows or something. Tutu wouldn't be so wild up over nothing. I was already walking up to the door. I raised my hand, fingers poised on the chain. Samantha said not to go down there, said the voice of reason in my head. If she knows you did, she won't trust you. It could take months or years to rebuild that trust. But she won't know, will she? I whispered to myself. Clink. I slit the chain and opened the door. Rickety wooden stairs led down to the cement floor. Rather than darkness, white light spilled out from the left side, as bright as daylight. I took a step, and the stairs creaked underneath me. Then another, and another. A strange smell met my nose. Slightly flowery, with a hint of something else. I couldn't place it. Sour, unpleasant, yet somehow familiar. My feet hit the cement floor, and I gasped. An immense planter tray sat on the floor. Massive grow lights hung from the ceiling. A sea of green extended out before me, thriving. But it wasn't marijuana. It was a vine. Tendrils the size of my arm grew up a makeshift wooden trellis towards the light. Massive purple flowers bloomed along its stem, and oval pods the size of footballs hung at various intervals. Some of its vines spilled out onto the floor, coming within inches of my feet. Wow, Samantha, I whispered. I stared at it for minutes, marveling its beauty, but as I stared at it, a horrible realization settled in me. No, it can't be, I thought as my eyes darted along the plant. But it was. Even though there's no breeze down here, even though musty air was absolutely still, it looked like the plant was moving. The leaves wavered nearly impredictably. The flowers swayed, and the main stem leaning against the trellis that was easily as thick as my waist. It swelled slightly, then fell. Swelled, then fell, in a rhythm, over and over, as if it was breathing. I whirled around and raced back upstairs. I slammed the door behind me, heart pounding, and slid the chain into the lock. Tutu looked up at me from the family room, her dark eyes filled with fear. Number 2 by J Group, Planned Obsolescence. I was riding the elevator up to the 4th floor when I noticed it for the first time. When I noticed them for the first time. Someone else was on the elevator with me, someone I didn't recognize. She was new and looked barely old enough to have graduated high school, and yet her ID badge proclaimed in bold print, Allison Ivers, registered nurse, 8 East Medicine. I had been seeing a lot of new people around the hospital recently. I realized it was rare to see a single familiar face these days when I used to run into people I knew all the time. Maybe I was just getting old, people were retiring, and these new fresh-faced youngsters were coming in and taking their place. Sure, that was probably it. The young woman was dressed in immaculate white scrubs, neatly pressed and matching top and bottom. Her ID badge clipped to her pocket, but there was something unusual about her. It took me a few minutes to figure out what it was. Finally, I realized. She was devoid of all possessions, carrying no phone or lunch bag in her hand, no purse or water bottle. It was just her riding the elevator up to the 8th floor for what I presumed would be a grueling 12-hour shift. My point is, it was odd for her to be empty-handed, since usually at least people brought a backpack or a purse to work with them. Most people were also carrying coffee cups this time of day, like I was, but she had nothing. Then I saw something else that was strange. The woman's hair had been blown askew in the wind outside, revealing a thin, notched groove on the back of her neck, like something you'd see on air conditioner or in a car, concealing a control panel underneath. At least, that's what it reminded me of. She noticed me looking and self-consciously covered her neck with her hand, preventing me from examining it any further. I was so overcome with curiosity that I almost asked her about it despite her discomfort. But then the elevator dinged and the door opened to the 4th floor. People were waiting to get on and I had to hurry up and get to my shift. So I left the elevator reluctantly, feeling confused to say the least. I couldn't help but think about that in the following weeks as I noticed more and more young-looking nurses and doctors, cleaners, and food service staff. Not only young, but beautiful as well. The older staff members began to disappear one by one. I was always told it was an early retirement or a family emergency. There ever meant leave or that people simply left to work at other jobs. And yet there were no going away parties, no retirement celebrations. But one thing was consistent. The young, beautiful people in white scrubs always came in to take their places. The new people started taking over management positions next, becoming charge nurses, clinical managers, and head doctors as more and more fresh faces showed up week after week. I started to notice the differences. Their skin had a slightly waxy sheen to it, sometimes a little plastic looking in the right sort of light. And they were all, without exception, punctual and methodical, brutally efficient and quick to point out the errors of less perfect coworkers. It started getting harder and harder to keep up. I started getting warnings from the new nursing manager saying my performance was lagging far behind that of my coworkers, that I was too slow and couldn't keep up with the increasingly advanced computer systems they were bringing in to monitor the patients and document status changes. Then, one night during a graveyard shift, I began to realize what was happening. I had suspected it, sure, but who really believes such delusional, paranoid fantasies? The funny thing was, the revolution, the unveiling, all of it was a complete accident, a little bit of serendipity, I'd say. I was reading a technology article on the computer during my break at the desk. As usual, I was too busy to leave the floor. The hospital had made substantial cutbacks, and so we never seemed to have time for proper breaks anymore. Each nurse's patient workload had doubled, and if we left our post, it would mean some confused patient falling and breaking their hip due to a bed alarm not being answered in time. So we just stayed put in fear of losing our nursing license. At least I did. The only other nurse I knew who remained on the unit was Milani. She and I had been working there together for 10 years and had stuck it out through all the recent changes. We were surrounded by fresh-faced young nurses in neatly pressed white scrubs, all new to the hospital within the past few months as far as I could remember. Still, I was starting to get used to it, starting to adapt to the changes. So much so that I forgot about them all around us as the news article mesmerized me more and more, and I started to read out loud. "Get this, Mel," I said, her attention and speaking loudly. "Within the next 10 years, robots will have taken over another 20 million jobs by 2030, and the US alone has already lost 60 million jobs." We had just been discussing this exact phenomenon more and more recently. Just a few hours before, in fact, Milani's uncle had lost his job to automation, and others in her family were finding it next to impossible to find jobs in their chosen fields these days. Everything had been automated, and all the tasks that had once been well-paying jobs for people were now simply assigned to robots. Good thing robots could never do our job, right? I heard a brief whirring sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once, and looking up to see half a dozen faces of white-clad co-workers all sharply staring at me. Every staff member sitting at the nursing station was glaring at me. I wouldn't be so sure. Over in Japan, they've got nurse robots in long-term care homes. They deliver pills, check vital signs. Hell, they give the patients a damn cuddle and sing them a song even. Can you imagine? I mean, they couldn't replace us entirely, not yet, but if you got a fleet of those in the hospital, you'd only need a few real nurses. As Milani spoke, the nurses and doctors in their white scrubs slowly stood, all at the same time in unison. Their movements were smooth and organized, each one a perfect replication of humanity. My voice was caught in my throat as I tried to speak, to warn Milani of the white-clad androids who were closing in on us from all sides. I'd never felt so terrified, my vocal cords suddenly incapable of producing speech. Only a hoarse whisper came out, my trembling hand reaching out to touch Mel's shoulder, to pull her away from the computer so she could see for herself. She was focused on her documentation and didn't see them. "What? Stop! What's your deal? Why are you pinching me?" She was shouting as I squeezed her shoulder involuntarily harder than I meant to. But it was too late. They were all around us, and they could tell that I knew more than I was supposed to. She finally turned around, just in time to see half a dozen vaguely plastic-skinned people standing in a circle around us. They were youthful, fresh-faced, and dressed in immaculate white scrubs without a stain on them, smiling without happiness. "You should not be reading that news article at work," said one of the nurses in a monotonous voice. "It's not appropriate. Please observe the rules and guidelines set forth by management at all times. Thank you." I was going to play it cool, but I looked at Milani and saw it was far too late for that now. She was terrified, stuttering and pointing with a trembling hand at the robotic humanoid surrounding us. None of you are... What the hell is happening here?" The android who had been replacing her coworkers did not appreciate being noticed. Whoever had created them and installed them there did not want them to be seen. Their eyes began to glow red and their smiling faces turned to sharp-toothed sneers. Terrified, I tried to stand up to defend myself, but immediately found myself on the ground, my head bleeding and aching after a sharp blow to the temple from one of them. I hadn't even seen it coming. Milani was on the ground next to me, appearing half-conscious from a similar injury. The androids stood around, looking down unsympathetically, raising their boots to crush our skulls beneath their feet when they froze. The overhead PA crackled to life and I heard the bored voice of the switchboard operator. "Attention please, code gray, Wi-Fi down, code gray, Wi-Fi down, code gray, Wi-Fi down." She had said literally the only words that could have saved our lives. The hospital Wi-Fi had gone down temporarily, and apparently this had caused the robots to malfunction. I got up breathlessly, panting, and pulled Milani to her feet next to me. We didn't have time to consider that had just happened and how we had almost been killed by our imposter co-workers. Before we could say a word to each other, a monitor began to alarm, indicating a patient that had taken a turn for the worse. "A2 is in VTAC," I yelled with disbelief in my voice. Who would have thought this night could get any worse? After rushing to the room and calling a code blue, we performed CPR on the pulseless patient. A dozen other familiar staff members came up to the floor and helped us to save them, transferring the person to the ICU after reviving them. "How short-staffed are you on the 4th floor these days?" asked one of the nurses in the aftermath. "I know there's been cutbacks lately, but this is ridiculous. It's just the two of you on the whole floor? This patient's lucky to be alive." I didn't understand at first, but then I realized all of the new nurses in their white scrubs were gone, whisked away to the repair lab somewhere, I guess. "They're gonna need to hire more people again," I said. Milani sighed dejectedly. There would be plenty of hard days ahead until we were fully staffed again. "Actually, you wouldn't believe what I just read about the thing they're doing in Japan. Robot nurses, wild stuff," said a critical care nurse at the bedside. She had been able to get an IV when none of the rest of us could have. She flipped her hair back, and as she did, I saw a simple notched groove on her neck, barely noticeable, but there. The woman caught me looking and dropped a sly wink that nobody saw but me. Some of the better ones run on 5G. Number 3, by MTP6921. How does a kid go missing from a hotel room with both parents inside? Living on the East Coast, I've always felt there was a certain mystery to the West Coast in California that I had never had the opportunity to see before. We don't have the warmer Pacific Ocean or the Hollywood Hills or any desert on the East Coast. Father Time keeps ticking away as my wife Leah and I are getting older, as well as our 11-year-old son Hunter. We have planned a 2-week trip driving from Phoenix up to San Francisco and then down to Hollywood with at least 20 stops along the way. We arrived in Phoenix in the morning and started driving towards the Grand Canyon. Seeing the cacti in Phoenix was the best part as we ventured towards the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon was about as grand as I thought it would be, considering that I've been hyped up about it my whole life. Vegas was okay, where the heat and the constant smoke in the air made it a bit uncomfortable, but still, it was fun. On our way to Sequoia National Park, we decided to see Death Valley. I had heard of Death Valley from watching California football TV broadcasts, that made more references to the desert over the years. So far, everything we've seen has been a different landscape, and that's what we were looking forward to see, where Death Valley is basically Mars with its vast nothingness. I hadn't put much planning into driving through Death Valley, as we were more focused on the sexier places like Hollywood, Vegas, and San Francisco. After we saw all the major tourist sites at Death Valley, like the lowest spot below sea level in the United States, we headed towards Sequoia National Park to see the really big trees. We saw a gas station advertising gas at $6.36 a gallon. Leah and I thought our hybrid would be fine until the next gas station, considering the dash was showing that we had 110 miles worth of gas left. We learned about an hour later that passing up on the expensive gas was a mistake because the desert never seemed to end. I've had some harrowing experiences in my life, but driving through the desert with only 40 miles left until an empty gas tank has to be at the top of the list now. I can't even look online to see the closest gas station because we have zero cell phone reception. I can't even take advantage of the hybrid car to save gas, as we were constantly increasing in elevation and using more gas than battery. Geez, Ben, we should have just got a gallon of gas before when we saw that expensive gas. I know, but I would never have expected this vast nothingness. We're in California, for God's sake, where all I think about is millions and millions of people, not this. What happens if we run out of gas? I have no idea. I'm not sure if there's even a tow truck company with roadside assistant anywhere around here. Oh God, what do we do? I'm just going to drive as efficiently as possible to help conserve gas. Our son Hunter seemed to be oblivious to everything going on as he plays games on his iPad. With my dashboard only showing 10 miles worth of gas left, we finally stumbled upon a miracle. The industrial town of Trona that has a gas station. I just about got out of the car and kissed the concrete ground of the gas station. The gas station hadn't been modernized, so I had to pay for gas with my credit card inside the gas station's convenience store. The cashier was actually smoking a cigarette inside the store, which is something I probably haven't seen in a couple of decades. She looked like she was in her 60s, but I don't think she was a day older than 25. Sometimes you can just look at someone and see that nothing in their life had went their way. I can't imagine what abuse she had experienced in life to look so sorely. Leah and I were so emotionally drained from the 400 miles of driving and nearly running out of gas that we decided to rent a hotel room in Trona. I went back into the store and asked the gas station clerk if the local hotel up the road was okay, and she just stared at me while she held a cigarette in her hand. I wasn't really sure what that stare meant because her face looked so beat up by life already. After paying for the gas and feeling a bit off from the encounter with the clerk, I took a quick look around Trona and realized that once thriving industrial town was essentially dead. A lot of the smaller trailer homes were abandoned. A big industrial factory that looked like it had something to do with maybe salt mining had 0 cars in it at 2 p.m. on a weekday. The three of us decided to take a short stroll around the modern-day ghost town. There's an abandoned gas station not far away, so we take a look at it and are just amazed how this business and every other one had been abandoned. We're so amazed how we take a quick photo in front of the abandoned gas station. There's an outdoor newspaper rack that still had newspapers. I pick up one of the newspapers and see it was dated 3 years ago. Because the newspaper were in the shade and from the lack of rain, I guess helped preserve the paper. I take a look at the front page headline, which read, "The plant is now officially closed for good." The corresponding articles were all doom and gloom on how the once sprawling town of 10,000 people was losing its last factory, and essentially its last source of income for its townspeople. As I look around the town, I haven't seen anything besides the beat up by life gas station clerk. The abandoned trailers and business are definitely different to see, but everything looks too new to have that old vintage cool factor associated with it, like an old abandoned gold mining town. This town is actually more depressing than anything else. The town continues to have this depressing feeling as we see trailer after abandoned trailer. The people must have left and went to Los Angeles or Vegas, both Lee and I discussed, as Hunter just follows behind us, wanting nothing more to play with his iPad. As depressing as the town is, I wasn't in the mood to drive anymore, so we decided to just stay at the local hotel. Hunter didn't care about anything in the town, and quite frankly, he was so bored with the driving and everything else that he just wanted to go back home. As we drove the car to the Trona Hotel, I saw a man on the shoulder of the main road in a manual wheelchair, where he was quickly maneuvering the wheelchair with his legs while sitting down, which kind of defied any logic to why he needed the wheelchair, but he and his actions best describe the overall aura of the town. I pulled into the hotel, and it's not surprising that we were the only car parked at the whole hotel. The hotel didn't have the 1960s characters to it, which was probably when this town was booming, despite the fact of the awkwardness of us being the only patrons. The three of us went into the hotel lobby, and we were greeted by an over-the-top personality that reminded me of that host in the 1990s hit game show Double Dare, or one of those infomercial guys pitching a spiel about a product that probably never needed to be invented. He had a name tag of Jim Bob, and he was wearing an outdated sports coat from the 1990s that didn't look of high quality. This town was single-handedly changing my whole perspective of California, or what I stereotyped it to be growing up. I really just wanted to have a normal interaction with this guy, but this over-the-top personality made me not want to say anything for the fear that he would just keep on talking. He had to be almost the exact opposite of the gas station attendant, as she was too sullen to talk, and this guy seemed to have the wit of someone with a 5th grade education and the energy of a cocaine addict who mastered the art of actually getting 7 hours of sleep at night. After continually declining his advances to upgrade to a family suite, we thought the more economical one room with 2 double beds would suffice. Before leaving the hotel lobby, Leah and I thought we should take advantage of getting a cup of complimentary coffee that was offered to the guests. Leah fixed me a cup of coffee that was quite horrible, but it was wet and we were both desperate to drink, as there was no Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks within a 200-mile radius of us. We headed to our room, brass key in hand, that looked like it was made in the 1950s. When we opened our hotel door, I quickly got the impression that we were stepping back into the 1960s. Not a single thing had been updated in this room. Even the TV that sat on top of the oak dresser was one of these old, fat, black and white tube TVs that took a minute for the screen to come on and be confused. The TV had no channels that came in, so we just shut it off as Hunter continued to play games on his iPad. That drive must have taken everything out of me. I have to lay down now, I say to Leah. I know, me too, Ben. I can't keep my eyes open anymore. As soon as my eyes hit the pillow, I was out. I woke up in what felt like an eternity later, with Leah still asleep next to me. The room was close to being pitch black. Earlier, the natural light was all that we needed to light the room. I look around for a light switch by the door and turn the lights on. Hunter? I say out loud, because I don't see him. I double-check the bathroom, and I don't see any signs of him. On the bed is his iPad, and I look at the door, which still appears to be locked. I quickly unlock the door, and I don't see anyone. The parking lot is still completely empty besides our rental car. I quickly rush back into the room. Leah, wake up, Hunter's not here. What? He's not in the room. I look outside the room, and I don't see him. Where did he go? Leah says as she finally fully awake. I'm going to check the hotel lobby. I slow jog to the lobby as I see Leah look around outside the hotel room. It's dark now. Being able to see now is difficult. Do you guys need more towels or an extra pillow? The hotel clerk enthusiastically says. No, our son Hunter, he's gone from our room. Have you seen him? No, sir, I haven't. Maybe he just went for a walk somewhere. No, it's not like him to do that. He would just sit in the bed all day if my wife and I didn't tell him to do something. That's odd. He's just an autism spectrum. He was born that way. He sees little value in human interaction. Oh, okay. If I see him, I'll let you know. No, I need the police over here right now. Do you want me to call Sheriff McGreer? Yes, right now, please. I I slow jog around the hotel calling Hunter's name. I meet up with Leah and tell her that the local sheriff is coming and for her to take the car and search around town. The sheriff arrives within 5 minutes. He has a mix of golden brownish hair mixed with gray hair and has a thick 5 o'clock shadow. He's a little shorter than me, at about 5 feet 8 inches in height. He's wearing jeans and a short sleeve, thick khaki shirt with a sheriff star pinned to the shirt pocket. He's probably in his early 50s and seems like he's all wound up. "What's the problem?" he says unenthusiastically asking me. "My 11-year-old son, Hunter, is missing." "Missing? How?" "When my wife and I woke up from our naps in the hotel room, he was just gone." "Does he have a history of doing this?" "No, never. He's on the autism spectrum and tends to stay in one spot or follows us." "Was your hotel room door locked when you woke up?" "Yes." "So he left the room and locked the door. That seems odd. The hotel must have an extra key or someone broke into the room." The hotel lobby clerk overhears me say that the hotel must have extra keys and quickly chimes in. "No, that's false. Each guest is given 2 keys, and that's all we have for each room. We purposely keep no extra keys so we can't be blamed for theft. That's why we charge a $250 fee for lost keys, because we have to call a locksmith to unlock the door and change the lock each time a key goes missing." "Why wouldn't someone just duplicate a key? Look at one of our keys. They all say don't duplicate." The sheriff then says, "Let's take a look at your hotel door and see if anyone tampered with it." 3 of us take the walk to my hotel room. I don't get a good vibe from the sheriff, and I especially don't get a good vibe from Jim Bob, the hotel clerk. How much training has a sheriff in a dive town like this have? I keep asking myself, not to mention these 2 guys are probably like brothers or cousins. It's too dark out to see an extended distance, but I keep looking for Hunter as we walk down the door. Leah texts me to tell me that she hasn't spotted Hunter and asks about my progress. I tell her that I'm with the hotel clerk and the sheriff looking to see if anyone tampered with the door. "There's no signs that someone tried to jimmy the door and the lock doesn't look like it was tampered with," the hotel clerk says, which irks me more than anything else. The sheriff twists the door handle a few times and looks around the door frame. "Shouldn't we be careful not to mess with any potential evidence?" I ask the sheriff. "Sounds like you think a crime happened here," the sheriff says. "My son is gone!" "So someone broke into your hotel room while you and your wife both slept through the whole thing," the sheriff says. "Well, if you ask me, there was something in that coffee that we got from the hotel lobby," I responded. "What?" the clerk says with confusion. "Well, both me and my wife were passed out asleep within 10 minutes of drinking that coffee." "Are you insinuating that I spiked the coffee with something?" the clerk says to me in an angry tone. "I know you did, and I know you have a key to my room. You boys better settle down and let me take a look in this hotel room." Me and the clerk both shut up as the sheriff looks around. "Your son's bed looks neat and orderly. The covers haven't even been moved. Would he just leave the room with anyone?" "No, but if this clerk here, and perhaps with the help of one of his friends, dragged him out, then that would be the only logical way for my son to leave this room." The clerk gets mad. "You son of a bitch!" "Hey, settle down," sheriff says to the clerk. "Sir, you do notice that there's no signs of struggle in this room?" "Yeah, because he's an 11-year-old. What's he going to do? Knock over the 100-pound tube TV or that solid oak dresser?" I'm almost convinced now that the sheriff is working in the cahoots with this sleazy hotel clerk. "I don't know what to tell you, sir, but most kidnappings happen within the family. Listen, this clerk over here reeks of sleaziness, so don't go implying that my son wasn't kidnapped. I've known Jim Bob my whole life, and he is as honest as they come. Maybe he didn't go to one of those fancy pants New York or Philadelphia high schools like you did, but he's a real honest man. I want you to call the federal authorities. Listen here, you're in my jurisdiction, so don't be telling me what I should be doing. What are you going to do then? I'm going to give you 30 seconds for you to tell me where your son is, or I'm going to arrest you." At this point, I feel as if I'm living out in the movie, The Deliverance, or some type of horror movie. I know these 2 creeps did something to my son, and now they want to get rid of me. We purchased bear mace, and I know it is in the front of my suitcase. I'm going to carefully go get the mace, then spray the sheriff first, and then Jim Bob next. 1 second, there might be something in my suitcase that can help us. I remember putting a brochure in the bag about a gold mine that my son Hunter might have drifted away on his own towards. The clerk continues to tell the sheriff in a mocking way that no one came into this room. I quickly grab the bear mace from my suitcase and in one motion lifted up towards the sheriff instinctively reached for his revolver from his holster, and he barely got the revolver in his hand when I sprayed his face, aiming for his eyes. As the mace hits his eyes, he's dropped his revolver on the bed, and then I aim the mace at Jim Bob's face. My eyes become irritated with the mace in the air, but these two guys must be feeling 100 times the effect of the mace that I'm feeling. They're both yelling and screaming at the top of their lungs, "You son of a bitch, you're going to jail for a long time!" And the sheriff angrily yells at me. The sheriff can't see, but he's fumbling around the bed looking for his gun, so I quickly grab it. The sheriff then grabs me and tries to force me to the ground. Without thinking, I aim the revolver at the sheriff and shoot 3 times. Then I aim the revolver at Jim Bob, and I completely empty the revolver. The room gets completely silent as I see the sheriff and Jim Bob's lifeless bodies on the floor. I smell the distinctive smell of gunpowder emulating through the room. I've never killed anyone before, but I know these 2 psychopaths have something to do with Hunter's disappearance. I try my hardest not to feel bad. Leah calls my phone. "It's dark out. I can't see anything. I see no signs of Hunter. How's everything going on your end?" "Well, I killed the hotel clerk and the sheriff." "Ben, why and how did you do that? Have you gone crazy? What are you doing? What are you gonna do now?" "Listen, the sheriff was corrupt and he was going to arrest me because he didn't think anyone broke into our rooms and kidnapped Hunter. He couldn't call the federal authorities to get additional help. The clerk spiked our copy and the 2 of them were working together. It's so obvious. What do we do now? Let's get our things together and find Hunter and get out of this town." Leah gets back to the hotel room within 5 minutes. I go to the hotel clerk's office and remove any record of us staying there. Thankfully, Jim Bob hadn't charged anything on my credit card yet. Leah gets back and she insists on looking inside the hotel room as she breaks down in tears when she sees the 2 dead bodies. We collect all our belongings out of the room to include Hunter's iPad and all of our bags that we hadn't even unpacked. Then I realized something odd was missing. "Where's Hunter's Lammy?" I asked. "Lammy is a stuffed lamb he had since he was 2 years old." "I'm not sure, Ben. I know that I didn't see that stuffed lamb at all before, so I opened his suitcase and I looked around it, and I still don't see it. He must have brought it with him when he left the room, but that seems really odd. Maybe the kidnappers told him that he could bring it," Leah says. Those 2 dead hillbillies on the floor were taking into consideration Hunter's emotional state and allowed him to bring his stuffed lamb, but not his iPad? I guess so. Something just wasn't adding up here. I'm a freaking manager at a Walmart and not a detective, but things are definitely starting to add up in the wrong pile. So I now play the role of the sheriff. You know, the sheriff had raised some interesting points, like how did someone break into our room without either of us hearing it? "Ben, I was really knocked out cold. You probably could have jumped on me and I would have stayed asleep." "That's fine, but I thought about something peculiar that didn't dawn on me until now." "What's that?" "Take a look at the photo of the 3 of us posed in front of the abandoned gas station," as I show her a picture on my iPhone. "Okay, so?" "Look at your shorts in that photograph, and look at your shorts now." "I can explain." "Go ahead." "Right before I was going to pass out, I really wanted to change my shorts because I was sweating so much." "Really? So you were so tired from being drugged up that you went into your bag and got out clean shorts, then got changed and put your dirty shorts away, zipped up your bag and everything?" "Yes." "Wow, that's pretty amazing, because I remember you saying that you couldn't keep your eyes open anymore, but you had the energy to do that and still not wake up when the kidnappers came into our room." "What are you implying, Ben?" "Give me your phone." "No." "Because you're hiding something." "I'm not giving my phone, Ben. I'm not hiding anything. The 2 kidnappers are dead on the floor." "Listen to me, Leah. You're not leaving this room until you give me your phone." Leah looks around the room and quickly grabs her revolver, not knowing the revolver is empty of bullets. "You're not going to shoot me, Leah." She aims her revolver at me and pulls the trigger, and no shot comes out. So she repeats and pulls the trigger multiple times, and still no shots come out. Sorry, honey, but I used all the bullets already on those 2 innocent people on the floor. If I was to look at your phone, I would guess that you researched this town pretty extensively before we even took this trip. Not because you were looking for a cool place to stay, but more so a perfect place to commit your evil deed on our son. Pen, let me explain. You know, if I look on your Google Maps, it will show your location when you were sleeping, because I bet you thought that I would never figure that out. Ben, I know you're smart. Let me guess, you spiked my coffee with your old prescription of Ativins. Yes. Excuse me? Yes, I did. Why, Leah? Is he alive? She doesn't answer me and just looks down on the ground. What did you do to our son? Hey guys, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Check out all my links down below. And if you have a story you want me to read, my email's down below as well. I don't know when the next video is going to be up. I know I don't really have a schedule anyways, but like I've said on Instagram, I think I'm coming down with a cold. I tried, editing this took me all day just to get out of bed, but I really do hope you guys enjoyed this video, because honestly, these are my favorite stories so far. Anyways, I'll see you guys soon. Bye.
次のページに開く新しいストーリーを読む時には I wanna be me タイトルは Nobody but you Only one そんな存在になりたい No one else 似たような人はいない Only you こっちに振り向いてよね I just want to express myself
stay the same forever.